Hey, what's up guys? Logan here, and today I have a little bit of an update for you guys on the tank right behind me. That's a UNS 5N. It's about 3.5 months old, and things are looking really decent. I want to go ahead and say right off the bat, this isn't a contest-winning tank. My roommate Mal and I set it up as sort of her first tank that she would be doing the maintenance on. She did the hardscaping, planted it, so we wanted to go with something super easy to maintain, nothing too complicated, and I think we definitely achieved that with this. So we're gonna do a little bit of maintenance session on it, but before we get to some trimming and a water change, let's talk about what's working in this tank, what's not working, and go from there. You can see that the Rotala Green in the back is growing up really high, and some portions look great, other portions not so great, and you're having different rates of growth depending on where the Rotala is positioned relative to the light. So if you look at the left side of the tank, the Rotala Green under the drop checker is being shaded a bit. It's further from the center of the light, so it's looking a little bit leggy. And then interestingly enough, if you move to the middle of the tank, you'll see that the Rotala is sort of getting the most par and the most light, and it's totally changed colors. It's more of like a yellowy red. So unless it has some sort of deficiency, which seems really unlikely, I'm guessing it's starting to turn red because it's producing more anthocyanin, which if you haven't seen my video on red plants, go check that out. When plants get hit with a lot of light, anthocyanin is this chemical that sort of acts like a sunscreen, and they produce more red pigmentation. So it's really interesting, and I've been trimming it probably every like 3 weeks, just kind of pruning it here and there. But today I'm doing a pretty big trimming, gonna hack down a lot of the top, shape it a little bit, nothing too complicated, nothing too meticulous, but a little trimming of the stems every few weeks just to maintain the general shape, keep the growth healthy and compact is really all this tank needs. Moving on to the mid-ground, I'm really happy to see that the AR Mini and the Repens is really taken off, and it's looking super healthy. A few weeks ago, we were dealing with like a little bit of staghorn algae in this tank, so we treated it with magic in a bottle, hydrogen peroxide. Totally wiped out the staghorn algae. Maybe there's like teeny tiny remnants of it, but nothing too visible. And the plants are looking really healthy. So the AR Mini specifically needs a little bit of a trimming because some of those leaves are very large for a tank like this. So over the next few weeks, it's a good idea to just keep an eye on the plant. And today I'll sort of hack off some of those larger leaves, and maybe, 4 to 6 weeks from now, we just kind of take them way back down to stimulate more bushy growth. Repens today, I don't think we really have to touch. It's looking really beautiful. I think sort of the height that it has is contributing to a more impactful midground, and it's doing a really nice job of separating the midground from the foreground. Moving on to the foreground, we have the Hemianthus callitrichoides Cuba, and it's looking really nice. This has undergone probably about like 5 or 6 trimmings, some really major and brutal, others just to like take off the leggy growth. And as expected, it's responded really well. The growth is coming in really compact and bushy, and to be honest, it had a really rough start. It was coming from tissue culture, it melted back a little bit, and now it's just really spreading out nicely. So I'm really happy to see that that is doing very well, and it's nice and healthy and vibrant, and I just love HC Cuba because it's such a pop of vibrant green. So really enjoying this plant. Do a little bit of a trimming today, and I plan to just keep an eye on it over the next few weeks, and anytime I see leggy sections, just kind of hack those down, because as I always say, that just stimulates more compact bushy growth. Never be afraid to really take down your carpeting plants, because the more you do it, the denser and more beautiful it's going to be. And finally, sort of the foreground, midground hybrid plant that we have to talk about is the Eleocharis Pusilla, which has done its job. It's made the carpet look a lot more natural by sort of creeping into it. And then in the midground, it sort of blends really nicely with the Repens and the AR Mini. And this was the intended effect. When Mal and I were talking about plants, she said she wanted a nice transition from that flat foreground to the midground. So I recommended Eleocharis because it sort of acts like a weed, maybe 8 to 10 weeks after it gets established, and it'll really just like spread out. So once it is established and it starts to spread out, it's up to you to maintain it and decide where you want it to creep into, where you want it tall, where you want it shorter, and you'll trim to sort of accentuate that design philosophy. So as you can see in the foreground, it's starting to get a little bit weedy and take over. So what I'm doing today is just just simply hacking it down to nothing, and then it won't really be visible. It'll come back in a few weeks, but you just hack it down again. I think keeping it taller in the mid-ground is really cool and helps it give a natural look, but if I see anything that kind of stands out, I'll just take it down because again, it doesn't hurt to trim. It's just gonna bring in healthier growth. So when we initially set up this tank, it was fully intended to be a beta tank, and surprisingly enough, we still haven't added the beta. We were really close about 5 or 6 weeks ago to getting a beta, but unfortunately it sold out before we could get the beta. And yeah, the weeks have gone by and we still haven't really found anything that has caught our eye. So still on the lookout for livestock, but who knows, you know, now that the tank is a little bit more established, we could always add something different. I might try and convince Mal to go for like a small school of a teeny tiny schooling fish, maybe a Bararas or like something about the size of an Ember Tetra. But a beta is definitely not off the table. I know that's what she really wants, but I don't know, the more I kind of look at this tank, I feel like it might be a little bit on the smaller end for a beta. I mean, I know people keep like betas and bowls and cups and stuff like that, but that doesn't make it okay. And I really want to be an advocate for good animal husbandry. I never want to be the type of aquascaper that, you know, doesn't take the fish's needs into consideration. So yes, a beta would be healthy and do just fine in this tank, but would it thrive? I don't know, you guys tell me. Anybody in the comments, let me know if you keep a beta in a 4 to 5 gallon tank, how it does, you know, how its color is, and if you think that this would be a good tank for a beta, because we're totally open to suggestions, and who knows, there's a lot of really cool tiny schooling fish out there that would look dope in this tank. But in terms of the livestock we already have, we have added a very small handful of some Neocaridina shrimp. And these guys are absolutely beautiful. They are a darker blue, almost like a black, depending on the lighting they're under. And they're just such a joy to watch. I love Neocaridina because they're such a hardy, easy to keep shrimp. So if you're not yet ready for something like a Caridina, Neos will do really well in just about any water. And I find that they really thrive in very hard water. So a lot of people struggle with aquascaping because maybe their tap water is like liquid rock. It's super high, you know, like 400 to 500 TDS. The water here in Portland is very soft. It comes out of the tap at 30 parts per million TDS. So we remineralize up to 120. And because of the stone in this tank, it's sort of hardened the water over time. So it sits at about 250. And then when I do a water change, I don't add any more minerals to kind of maintain that. And the Neos seem to be really digging it. They're not breeding yet, but I find that in heavily aquascape tanks with CO2, usually it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for your shrimp to get established and breeding. I would give these guys another like 4 weeks or so, and hopefully they'll start breeding. But they're really fun to watch, and I think the color is so cool, and I'd love to see a million of them running around this tank. So that's about all the time we have for today. This was a really easy maintenance session. Only took me about 20 minutes, and I think it's good to have tanks like this that you're not absolutely obsessed with. You know, you're not necessarily getting your hands in it every day. Just kind of an easy to keep tank that every 4 to 6 weeks you do a big maintenance session, and yeah, it just kind of enhances your living space without demanding too much of your time. So again, let me know down below in the comments if you think Mal and I should still go with the beta or if we should add like a small nano style schooling fish. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.